and welcome to the Bomb Shelter. I'm your host this time, Jay McDowell, and with me as always is
Kevin Chum.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And we are recording the first annual Kevin's Bionic Bigfoot Birthday Bonanza.
Ooh.
Yeah, there we go. That was a little harder to say than I thought it would be. But hey, yes, it's Kevin's birthday month. So he got to choose the movie this time around.
Yeah.
And what he chose was from 1976, season 3 of The $6 Million Man, The Secret of Bigfoot, episodes 1 and 2.
Yes.
BCS arm switch is on. Okay, Victor. Landing rocket arm switch is on. Here comes the throttle. Circuit breaker's in. We have separation. Roger. Inboard and outboards are on. Coming forward with the side stick. Oh, looks good. Roger. I've got a blowout. Neighbor 3. Get your pitch to 0. Pitch is out. I can't hold altitude. Correction. Alpha hold is off. Trip selectors emergency. Flight comm. I can't hold it. She's breaking up. She's breaking.
Steve Austin, astronaut, a man barely alive.
Gentlemen, we can rebuild him. We have the technology. We have the capability to make the world's first bionic man. Steve Austin will be that man. Better than he was before. Better, stronger, faster.
And there you have it. We hope trailer.
Yeah. We're not sure if there's a trailer, but you just heard something having to do with it.
You will be able to, you ahead of us in time will know whether or not we found a trailer.
Yep.
So, yes, $6 Million Man, the TV show from the 70s. I think he went from 71 to about, 79 or so.
There's 5 seasons, and this was the third. So, yeah.
So, maybe 73 to 76, somewhere.
Something.
It was the 70s.
Numbers.
It was an awesome time. This episode, of course, The Secret of Bigfoot, it's 2 episodes, 1 and 2. It was directed by Alan Crosland Jr., who apparently directed every TV show ever.
Well, we always take notes for these, and I typically start... I'm not great with like directors and writers. The actors usually, like I say, like, oh yeah, I saw him in this or that. But
but unless it's like a really super well-known director,
So I looked it up, and like he was directing all the way back to like the original Twilight Zone, and then his final credit was MacGyver. So he was doing it for quite a while.
Time, yeah.
Okay. And as I scrolled through, it was like every TV show ever, pretty much.
So he's done a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
The writers for this episode were Kenneth Johnson, who also wrote for The Bionic Woman and V,
the TV show.
The TV show.
Yeah.
And Martin Caidin, who wrote the original book Cyborg. That the $6 Million Man series was based off of. And so I guess he kind of gets credit for it. He didn't really write this episode.
He's a co-writer for every single episode.
Just because of the inspiration for it.
Yeah.
Okay, and so we have the cast, of course, Colonel Steve Austin, Lee Majors.
Yep.
We all know and love from the 70s.
Yep.
He was... Well, this is pretty much all I knew him from. Well, until The Fall Guy.
The Fall Guy. He was in. I always forget which one it is, and I've never really seen. I think I've seen one episode, but there was some sort of Western show he was in. Was it maybe Big Valley or something like that?
Oh yeah. But I think it was something like that.
I've never really. I know him from the $6 Million Man, and then The Fall Guy, and he's definitely the most well known from $6 Million Man. I mean, that was his thing.
Spoiler alert: we didn't do a lot of research on this one.
No, this is one of those ones where we kind of figured we grew up with it, and we'd rather talk about personal stories about it than like technical, like in this year he did this, and then this happened,
And quite honestly, we'll probably be hitting $6 Million Man again at some point. So.
Oh yeah, I already have other episodes. I think I already know my next year birthday bonanza. Yeah.
See, that's the bad thing. My birthday's in October, and we do all the Halloween stuff.
Well,
so
we could figure something out.
Yeah, we'll figure something out.
Yeah.
So anyway, we have Oscar Goldman, played by Richard Anderson.
Yep.
Who we were talking about. He's been in some other stuff which we didn't. Didn't research that either.
the same thing though. He's most well known for $6 Million Man as Oscar Goldman,
and Bionic Woman.
And Bionic Woman, yeah. But he's actually been in a lot of TV and a lot of movies, even like really like major movies, like Stanley Kubrick movies, although I can't remember which one. He's been in, goofy movies, but really great movies too. He's just all around.
Yeah. So there you go. Your homework, listeners, go look up Richard Anderson movies.
Yep.
We have Stephanie Powers playing Shalin.
Yeah.
As you find out,
spoiler
alert, from a 40-year-old show.
Yeah.
One of the aliens who creates Bigfoot. Played by Andre the Giant.
Yep.
Yay!
Yep. And he's been in a couple things, but maybe at this point, probably second most well-known role as far as like TV and movies.
Yeah, like movies. Yeah.
I mean, obviously he's famous as a wrestler, but
he was in this, and he was in Princess Bride.
And he's probably overall better known for Princess Bride, would you say, or still this?
Yeah, because I think more people have seen that around the world.
Yeah,
I think he also played in other movies.
Yeah,
and stuff,
I'm sure he did,
and probably uncredited big, guys. And
a lot of the big guys were that. They're sort of like, oh, we need a big guy, and they may or may not get credit.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I had always thought he wasn't credited in this, but I saw his name in the credits.
Yeah, and it didn't look like the credits were. I mean, we're watching on DVD. It doesn't look like it was like updated for the DVD set. I mean, it's part of it looks like it's part of the original credits. So.
Yeah. So there you go.
I guess he was.
So we have the plot of these two episodes. It was a two-parter.
Yeah.
So we have the plot is two geologist friends of Steve Austin disappear in California while placing earthquake sensors in the woods. See, they disappeared.
Yeah.
A giant footprint is found nearby, leading to speculation of the involvement of a Sasquatch.
Which that brings to mind, like, and I understand sort of the Native American term is Sasquatch, and then maybe the Western white man version is Bigfoot, but they kind of go back and forth in this with which term they're going to use, Sasquatch or Bigfoot.
We do have the character Tom Raintree, who is the designated Native American Indian who knows all of the wise old legends and things like that, and kind of brings Oscar and Steve up to date on the whole Sasquatch thing. Yeah. And so it does get bounced back and forth.
Yeah, but which is fine. I mean, they chose to call the episode "The Secret of Bigfoot," not "Secret of Sasquatch."
Yeah, well, and in that time, we were talking about it while we were watching it. The mid 70s, well, the 70s in general, that was a big time for cryptid movies.
Yeah.
The Sasquatch things and the Legend of Boggy Creek and Loch Ness. We had a bunch of UFO stuff we had In Search Of. It was huge then.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I totally derailed where I was going with this, but Bigfoot was a big deal.
Yeah, this is a good time for Bigfoot, which is probably why they decided to write him to figure out some way to have Bigfoot in an episode of the $6 Million Man.
We've got a sci-fi show with a robotic guy. Let's throw some aliens and Bigfoot in there.
Yeah.
And he doesn't even turn out to be a real Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Spoiler.
Yeah, which is fine. I mean, for this show, it was kind of an interesting twist.
It was, and I can imagine it. I don't remember it when I was a kid, probably because I was watching it through my fingers.
Yeah.
Because I was so terrified. But I would imagine the ripping off of the robotic arm was quite the twist people didn't see coming.
Yeah, that's the first time watching it you kind of realize, like, okay, he's not just, a big creature. Like,
this isn't humanoid. An actual Sasquatch.
Yeah. If
there is an actual Sasquatch. So
should we maybe flesh out the plot a little bit more?
Yeah.
That one was pretty brief, but I always hate putting some huge description in there because then it kind of like dictates what we have to say.
Yeah. So well, go ahead, give it a little.
Yeah. So Steve has these, as it said, he has two geologist friends who are doing basically research out in the California mountains near a fault, which is not the actual San Andreas, but it's actually I wrote it down. San Madrian.
Yeah.
We weren't sure if it was Adrian or Madrian, but it looks like it's Madrian.
Apparently, San Andreas lawyers didn't want its name being used.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know why they felt the need to make a different
So yeah,
one,
but
okay.
it's clearly San Andreas Fault. That's the main one in California that we all
Yeah.
think about. But they're basically doing earthquake research, and they're putting these sensors in the ground. At the time, Steve and Oscar are kind of communicating with them over radio. Then you kind of see, kind of don't see.
You get a lot of pictures of trees bending.
Yeah,
branches
something's coming to get
snapping.
them, some growling.
Yeah.
And clearly something attacks them. I mean, because of the name of the episode, probably it's
Yeah,
going to
you
be
probably
Bigfoot.
got a good idea.
But yeah, I mean, Steve and Oscar just kind of hear some screams, and then the equipment all goes dead. So they're not sure what's happened, and you're not really sure what's happened either, because it doesn't show much. Like you said, it's just
does a really good job of ramping it up, because again, even though Bigfoot was a hot topic at that time,
yeah,
the most people had ever seen was the Patterson Gimlin picture or film, and even that's not very clear. So they did a really good job of ratcheting it up a little bit, making you, ooh, what is it going to look like? What's it going to be? You know,
you see like some legs with big feet walking, then you'll see like a kind of a silhouette of kind of the shape of them and all that, and
then they do the Bigfoot POV, and you see branches snapping, and then he comes at him and growls.
Yep. So something happens to them, and then basically the next section of the episode is Steve and Oscar trying to figure out what happened to them. They find this, when they finally find like the site where they were doing research, they find this stereotypical Bigfoot footprint.
Which they don't bother following the rest of the way.
For some reason, they're like, well, there's a footprint. What's the guy's name again? Raintree?
His last name was Raintree.
Raintree. He tells them the legend of like, hey, this is Sasquatch. My people call him Sasquatch. You call him Bigfoot. It's a legend from this area, and I think it was his grandfather.
Yeah, his grandfather
had some experience.
Some guy from his tribe apparently ran into one, and the grandfather went and helped him, and knew he had seen a Sasquatch.
And he had this the guy who had been taken by the Sasquatch, or who had seen him, had this look in his eye,
like crazy eyes.
Crazy eyes. So that kind of freaks him out. Oscar kind of
he blows it off.
Blows it off like that's just a legend.
Yeah, it's just a legend. It's all hoaxes, right?
Yeah.
And
so let's see.
In fact, they even suggest that the footprint is a mountain lion.
A mountain lion, which is like, that's a little.
Looks like
my foot's bigger than a mountain lion's.
Well, not so much that. It's just it looks like a big human footprint. It doesn't look like a cat or a bear.
Yeah,
or
that's true.
Like
it's not even the right shape or type.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to remember in order how this happens. I think they're doing. Steve doesn't see anything yet. I think there's an attack on the military installation base on the mountain.
Yeah,
right?
the little bit, because for some reason this earthquake study was also backed by the military. I guess. And
I think it was secret type information, so they just had to be kind of guarded, possibly
maybe
something like that. But yeah, so it's hard to tell if it's that evening or the next night.
We get Bigfoot rampage.
Here, Bigfoot rampage. You still don't really see him in full light, but you get a little
lot
more
of
of
silhouettes because of the explosions.
Yeah, and he's just
fires.
basically, he's clearly intelligent enough to not. He's not just saying, what are these things in my area? I'm going to destroy it. He's destroying equipment specifically.
Yeah, it's targeted.
Yeah, so he basically comes in, wrecks the place, and then runs away. And then of course Oscar and Steve get this report from, more reports of like, hey, there's this big beast type thing that just tore up our
base.
Yeah. And then so Raintree is kind of like, hey, see, I told you.
Well, and don't forget that throughout all this, we keep seeing these strange people in silhouette watching Steve Austin on a monitor.
Yeah.
And watching him when he gets to the point where he fights the Sasquatch, and are remarking how smart or how fast he is, and he must have telescopic vision and stuff like that.
They're kind of figuring out what's special about this.
But
guy.
they're all kept in silhouette, so we don't see who they are or what they're doing.
Yeah. So at this point you realize it's weird to talk about it because I've seen it tens. I wouldn't say hundreds of times, but I've seen it tens of times. So it's hard to like realize like, okay, at this point you don't know yet that this is going to happen. But yeah, there's basically people were watching this Steve and this Sasquatch and kind of evaluating them.
Yeah.
So Steve goes to look for one of the two geologists, the male.
The woman, because the guy came back.
He comes back.
And they saw he has crazy eyes.
Yeah.
And then the Indian guy goes, oh, yeah, he saw Sasquatch.
Told ya.
And so then they're still looking for the woman.
Yes.
And, yeah, they weren't in it enough to really get their names. So
Yeah.
But he fights Sasquatch and he rips his arm off.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, Steve encounters this. I think he's looking for the woman when he encounters them. And it's a really famous battle scene.
Fight scene, yeah.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But just they fight, and then tell him about the arm.
Yeah, he goes. I mean, because Austin's getting his tail handed to him.
Yeah.
And he finally grabs Sasquatch's right arm and then pulls it right out, and there's sparks and flames and everything.
Yeah.
And so Sasquatch howls, grabs the arm, and books it out of there.
Yeah.
And Steve follows him.
Yeah.
And the mysterious people are still watching him, and they're like, well, let's see how he does with this and this.
Yeah.
And this.
Yeah.
And somehow Steve manages to get into the bay. He figures out where the door is that was hidden.
Sort of up in this cave up in the mountains.
Yeah. And he gets in, and then how is he taken out? Oh, the cave.
The cave,
the spinning cave.
Yeah, there's a spinning ice cave that kind of...
It makes some weird noise, and it disorients him, and then he goes down, and they come and they take him and then examine him.
Yeah.
And examine all of his bionic parts and his non-bionic parts.
It's a little bit uncomfortable.
Creepy.
I mean, as a kid, I wouldn't have noticed it, but I mean, Steve's laying there. He's got sort of like a towel or something over his private area.
It's like he's getting a massage.
Yeah. And there's this sort of the woman doctor
who's
alien.
taking a liking to him.
And you come to find out they are aliens. They're not. These isn't like
a
secret military group or something like that.
And they're not just aliens. They're aliens who can manipulate time.
They can manipulate time with TLC.
With TLC.
Which is
that's all you need.
Yeah, it's not tender loving care. I can't remember what it actually stands for, but it's...
I don't think they ever said. I think
it's
they
basically...
threw it out there.
Yeah, you have this little device. They have this little handheld device that you basically...
It looks like they teleport at first.
Yeah. At first you think, oh, they're disappearing and then appearing somewhere else. But what it turns out is that they're able to change their time in relation to the time of the place that they are.
Yes,
so I could speed up, like I'm sitting here next to Jay. I could speed up my time and like run around behind him and then slow down to normal speed again. And it looked like I disappeared and then appeared behind Jay. But actually I just stood up and walked over there and then...
Yeah. And somehow we find out Steve can actually see this.
Yeah.
When it's described to him what goes on. It's also explained to him that the Sasquatch is a robot.
Yeah.
He's a bionic, and that they've been using him. The aliens have been using him to abduct people so they can they can examine them, and then they don't hurt them, and they just wipe their memory and throw
send
them back out. Yeah.
And that's sort of like, it kind of is a way to explain in this $6 Million Man world. It's a way to explain like, oh, so that's why people kind of see Sasquatch, but no one has like good evidence of them.
Clear memories of them.
Yeah. So that's kind of interesting.
And it also explains why you don't, until a couple seasons later, we see Sasquatch again, but why it's never really brought up. It's one of those in TV shows where everything needs to be wrapped up at the end, and it just helps wrap it all up nice. And we're done. We don't speak of Sasquatch again.
And actually, and if you think about, I didn't think about this I've never thought about this. It's called The Secret of Bigfoot, and basically by the end of the episode or episodes, it still is a secret of Bigfoot, because no one, including Steve, who spent half the thing with Bigfoot, can remember.
And it was
Bigfoot.
even his buddy at the end.
Yeah, they were friends. So that's basically, the end of episode 1, I think, is where they realize that a big earthquake is coming, and the only way to stop it is to set off
relieve the stress on the on a fault line
away from the population of Los Angeles, right? Or
they said San
Southern
Francisco,
California.
Los Angeles, and San Diego. It was the
yeah.
coast, and basically they relieve stress on this fault line, or they release the stress, and then it relieves the stress on the not San Andreas fault.
Yeah, the not San Andreas, definitely not San Andreas fault.
And don't forget it.
So basically, the end of the episode, sort of the cliffhanger is. Oh, by the way, the the female geologist, she made her way back at some point. Same look in her eyes.
Crazy
doesn't
eyes.
understand or remember what happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically it ends with Oscar saying like, we're gonna set off this.
Well, they're going to put a nuke in the fault line
in this area, but Steve is still missing. They don't know what's happened to him, and Oscar's sort of worried like, okay, well, Steve's out there. I mean, he might get killed if we do this.
Yeah, but and then it turns into the needs of the many outweighing the needs of the few kind of thing. Yeah. Because he doesn't want him to get blown up, especially since it cost him $6 million.
But if it's Steve versus literally hundreds,
as it was said on the show many times, hundreds may die.
Let's see. So let's count up the population. San Diego, there's about 20 people there. Los Angeles has about 40.
Five. There's only like 5 people there.
Plus San Francisco, overall that's like 99, 80, 99, 98, 99, maybe about 100 people total that live in all those three.
Maybe they were talking about the suburbs too.
That could be. So yeah, with all that, there's about 100 people. But yeah, it's pretty hilarious.
All in peril.
I don't know why. I mean, obviously Steve's not going to say, this many million people, but he doesn't even say thousands or hundreds of thousands. He just says
there's like, I think at least 4 million people in LA right now.
Yeah. And
that was 40 years ago. So I'll cut him some slack. There wasn't maybe as many million people, but still more than 100 probably are going to be at risk.
Yeah. So, I mean, one funny thing when you're watching this is Steve on more than one occasion says something about 100 people dying. And it's like, I mean, times 100 or something.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, because one thing earthquakes are notorious for is affecting the areas around the earthquake.
Yeah. So that was sort of a funny part. So the cliffhanger at the end is, Steve is, according to Oscar, he's missing, and this nuke's going to go off, or is he going to lose Steve? And so episode 2 or part 2 of this is sort of the continuation, of course.
And it's very Bigfoot light for the Secret of Bigfoot.
Yeah, and that's one thing as this episode was starting, and Jay has seen it a few times too, but I've seen it probably more. I was just saying, like, as an adult, I'm disappointed that there's not a lot more Bigfoot in this episode. Because, I mean, clearly, years later, when you think of the Secret of Bigfoot, you don't say like, oh, isn't that the one where the aliens can use TLC to travel through time? And no, you think like, oh man, that fight with Andre the Giant and Lee Majors, that's awesome.
I think though, going back to what we were saying about how big paranormal kind of stuff was in the 70s, I think they kind of were like, okay, we're going to do Bigfoot and aliens. So part 1 was Bigfoot heavy and part 2 is alien heavy.
And it does follow that. I mean, the part 1, most of it is about Bigfoot, and then it kind of a little bit of alien at the end, and then the second part is mostly aliens with a little bit of Bigfoot.
We find out more about them and about what they're doing and what, and they're not probing mean nasty aliens or bent on conquest. They're just explorers.
They're just studying. They're friendly. They're not going to take over the earth or anything.
Really,
like that
one guy I don't think could take over much of anything.
Yeah.
So
there's one alien. It's funny too. They all wear colored like jumpsuits, every color, pink, and 2 guys. I think 2 different guys are wearing pink jumpsuits.
One's in pink and one's in purple.
Yeah. And then, I mean, not that you like, okay, well, the girl has to wear pink, the guys have to wear blue, but it was just sort of funny. It's like, did
really, and the guys are all wearing ascots like Fred from Scooby-Doo.
From Scooby-Doo, yeah. And it's just like, it's almost like which 2 guys drew the 2 shortest straws.
It is very 70s though.
Yeah. And then there's, one of the aliens is sort of, well, the main alien is Shallon. Stephanie Powers, and she's kind of like the love interest for this episode.
Yeah, well,
but then you got
Steve's the love interest.
Yeah,
he's
her.
Not as interested.
Yeah, he's not as interested. You got this older kind of a older like just frank scientist type. If everyone in Los Angeles and your people are gonna die, scientific research is more important.
And omelets and eggs.
Yeah. And you got this older, and then you got this sort of like a little bit younger kind of alien. He's always complaining about everything.
He's always literally rolling his eyes at things.
At everything. He hates being on Earth. He has He's allergic to Earth, apparently.
Yeah, because it turns out they've actually been on Earth for 250 years.
Yeah.
But only 2 years in our time, because they keep bumping up.
They keep jumping
the
forward.
Speed, yeah.
Yeah.
And so Cranky Pants is like, I've got allergies, and I've had them for 200 years,
Yeah.
you know. And,
Yeah.
and he sounds like Paul Lynde, but
Yeah,
it was
he
not
does.
Paul Lynde.
Yeah, he does actually. And I was going to say it, except I couldn't think of Paul Lynde's voice. So I thought, I'm not going to say it. He sounds like that one guy. Like, I didn't want to say
He
that.
sound like Center Square in Hollywood
Yeah.
Squares.
Yeah. There's actually a few people in this episode that sound like someone else.
There were, yeah.
The African-American military guy.
The sergeant.
He sounds like, if you've ever seen it, when Eddie Murphy does his white guy impression, he sounds just like that. It's really funny.
Yes.
It's almost like he was doing it on purpose. It sounds
But
so
he was
much
doing
like
it like 10 years before.
before that. So yeah.
We're going to go set up the nukes over
Yeah.
here. And, you know, you have to see it to understand it. And it was funny.
Yeah. So, I mean, the end of the story, basically it's like, are we going to let this nuke go off? The aliens say no, because we don't want to mess up our...
Well, and unbelievably, for 250 years, they've never felt an earthquake.
Yeah, it's like...
in California.
Yeah, it's like, okay, well, I feel one
Along
at least once
a
a year.
fault line.
Yeah, yeah. At least once a year they've been here, you know, whether you want to say a couple of years or 250.
Yeah.
They would have felt one way
We
or the
have
other.
earthquakes every day here.
Yeah, yeah. So it's kind of an argument between, you know, the hundreds of people that live in California
versus the 12
The
people
12
at
aliens,
the
yeah.
facility of the aliens.
And Steve sort of stops Shallon from stopping the nuclear.
Well, he manages to escape because he's
Yeah.
told, you know, we'll let you go. It's no problem,
Yeah.
but we're gonna mind wipe you because
Yeah.
you can't tell anybody we're here. And he somehow manages to figure out how to use their little view screen thing, which apparently you can watch any camera
Anything,
from
anywhere.
anywhere
Yeah.
from any position. And he sees what she's doing. He overhears at the base camp what they're going to do. And so he tries to tell Shaolin
Yeah.
about, you know, hey, you know, we're going to nuke it again. She's like, you can't. And he's like, well, we have to. And then he finds out that she's been sent to go stop it. And by stopping it, basically going and pulling on a few cords it was supposedly buried 500 feet in the ground, but you couldn't tell. So he manages to escape and go and stop her beforehand. And so they set off the nuke. It sets off the earthquake, and everybody's happy.
Everyone's saved.
Except for everybody in the facility
Yeah.
who were squished by rocks.
Yeah, and so basically Steve and Shallon go back. With the help of Bigfoot, they kind of save a couple of them.
They save the leader,
Yeah.
definitely. And she does something with her little time doohickey and slows things down.
Slows things down so they have time
That's
to
the
help them, I
TLC.
think. The TLC, yeah. Unfortunately, they saved the complainy guy.
He survived, period.
Yeah.
He was helping get rocks off old
Yeah.
guy.
So, and you know, Bigfoot and Steve kind of become
buddies.
They help each other. They kind of get the facility back online. If that
Yeah.
wasn't really a word back then, probably, but
Well, because the power had been knocked out, so
yeah.
they had to go down, and Steve goes and plugs something back in
Yeah.
and twists a pipe, and
But yeah,
they're happy.
they're buddies. Then Shallon's there, and it's basically, okay, we're gonna let you go, and we're gonna mind wipe you. One thing we haven't mentioned is they have this sort of heal all liquid called neotraxin.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh well, my people. You know, Steve says, hey, you should give me some. My people could really benefit from this. And
because she tells him she's working on Bigfoot, and she has him has Steve hand her a battery.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh yeah, it's an antimatter battery.
Yeah.
And your people will figure it out in about a century. And he goes, well, we could really use the neotraxin, that would be more helpful. She goes, oh no, we can't, because apparently these aliens follow Prime Directive.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're not allowed to meddle with those primitives.
Yeah.
And so
she's going up to, oh sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
She's going up to mind wipe him, but right before she does, she hands him a little vial or something of the neotraxin. And I mean, he's going to forget even what the neotraxin is.
I know.
But he at least has it, and he's mind wiped. He makes his way back to, or actually, Sasquatch carries him out of the cave.
Oh, that's right.
And then he makes his way back
Lays
to
him gently
Oscar.
in the meadow.
Lays him down.
Gives him a kiss.
Yeah. And then, you know, he finds Oscar. Oscar finds him. He has this little vial of neotraxin. He doesn't know what it is. Oscar says, what's that? I don't know.
Yeah, where'd you get it? I don't know.
I'll go have it analyzed. And it's never ever mentioned again in any episode of $6 Million Man. I don't think, although I could be wrong, but we'll see.
Yeah.
But it's not a major. I mean, obviously, all of humanity wasn't saved forever.
I still have allergies, so apparently it wasn't used.
But basically, he's mind wiped and doesn't remember what happened. And kind of as the episode ends, Steve kind of, I don't know if he kind of sees something off in the distance.
I think he sees something moving, and he bionic zooms in on it and doesn't see it. And then it's like, what did you see? I don't know.
And something in his brain probably kind of slightly remembers something, but he doesn't remember Bigfoot or anything like that. Yeah. So it's still a secret of Bigfoot.
See, it would have been nice for Shallon to at least put a note on the new attraction that says, "Hey, inject."
Yeah, this this is good stuff. Don't drink it. It's not toilet bowl cleaner or something like that.
It did look like Tidy Bowl.
It did, yeah. So that's the basic story of it. And I think, well, you're actually the host of this episode, but this is time for our break as I look at the clock.
Then it's a good spot for it. I'm only the host because I wanted to say it was the Kevin's Bionic Bigfoot Birthday Bonanza.
And as you can see, whenever I try to specifically say something or read something, I can't. Yeah. So you definitely
I'm a little better at those things. Yes. So while I am the host, Kevin knows a little more about this. So,
about this specific one. Yeah.
So let's go ahead and take our little
break, and we'll be back.
Mid-break, and we will be right back. And welcome back to the bomb shelter. It's me still, Jay. It's Kevin still.
Or it might be Bionic Kevin. You don't know.
I don't know. We'll have to make him run and see how fast he can go.
Yeah, not very fast.
Are you Bionic? No, I'm just
really slow. It's in slow motion. Nope, that's normal. Nope.
Okay, so we've already beaten the episode to death.
Yeah, and it's not really. I mean, it's good to go over what happened, but the importance of this episode isn't like, and then this happened, and then this happened.
Yeah, this has more of. I mean, because I can't remember most of the episodes of Bionic Man. I know it usually involves him jumping, running, and looking and listening. Yeah, and that's about it.
The important part of this episode is the Bionic Bigfoot, even though their battle is literally probably less than 5 minutes long. From start to finish.
Sure seemed longer.
Yeah.
But it's more the, I mean, because we were like 4 and 5 when this came out.
Yep.
And for me, I know, I was terrified of Bigfoot.
Me too.
And of aliens, but of the big eye aliens, not they look like the neighbor next door.
They just look like regular people.
Yeah, in jumpsuits.
So,
a lot of it is just memories of that.
Yeah, and that's the reason we're doing that is because like I kind of said before, it's not like this. If we were doing a movie, it's not like this is the greatest movie ever. It's because of how much it means to me and how much it means to Jay.
Yeah.
As an episode, as a thing that occurred, that happened during our childhood.
Yeah, that we have some kind of connection to.
So let's get through a couple before we go into the personal stuff. Let's go into the
little bit of
tiny trivia. They both have to do with the same thing,
and they both have to do with us. Actually,
yeah,
we have connections.
Yes, we do. So in Southern California, there's a place called Universal Studios, which you've probably heard of, but may or may not have visited.
There's the one in Florida too. They're both related.
Yeah. The one in Los Angeles, though, I don't know about the other one, but it still has this spinning tunnel that you go through on like a tram thing as part of the tour. Back when I was a kid, it was called the Glacier Avalanche. And as a kid, they would mention, because I went sometime after this episode, apparently, that this was, in the Bionic Bigfoot episodes of the $6 Million Man, which was really neat for me. But as you go through this, you're basically going through like a tunnel, a circular tunnel, and the tunnel
spins around you.
Yeah, so even on a tram, you start getting kind of dizzy.
A little bit of vertigo.
Yeah, your head starts tilting with it, even though you're just sitting still. It feels like you're spinning around.
And even watching it on the screen, you kind of felt a little disoriented.
Yeah, even on a little weird. Yeah, even on a TV far away, and this is old television, so it's a square.
Yeah,
it still kind of it's disorienting. But yeah, on the tour, they always, when I was a kid, they mentioned the $6 Million Man. But apparently it was originally inspired by the Iger Sanction, which is a movie starring, I can't remember right now, it's either Charles Bronson or Clint Eastwood. But it's actually...
Sounds more Bronson-y.
It does, yeah. It's more well known, or at least back then was more well known as the $6 Million Man.
Yeah.
It was redesigned in 1997 to resemble a dormant volcano in the movie Dante's Peak, and then again in 2001 as the entrance to the mummy's tomb. And I went to Universal Studios about somewhere between 5 and 10 years ago. It's definitely not the ice-looking thing from the $6 Million Man. It's more of a...
They've colored it a little
It's more of a rocky brown looking thing now. I don't remember which movie
It's probably still from Mummy then.
Probably still Mummy. I don't remember, but to me it's still from the $6 Million Man.
Yeah, and probably the main reason they used that is $6 Million Man was a Universal television show.
Yeah.
And Universal Studios is an active movie lot.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was probably like, hey, we've got this tunnel thing here that we're going to build. So
that looks like something aliens would...
Yeah, we use this for this other movie. Let's use it for this.
Yeah.
And like Kevin was saying at one point, a lot of the outdoors, you get to where you're like, wait a minute, I remember that from another episode. Or
when you watch
when you watch
$6 Million Man, whenever they're sort of in a forest, you're like, I'm pretty sure that's where he fought Bigfoot in 2 seasons from now, or 2 seasons ago, or whatever.
Or 2 episodes ago.
Yeah. So, that's sort of a little bit of trivia. The other piece also has to do with that tunnel, and it's that specifically Lee Majors had a lot of trouble walking through it, which I'm not surprised at all, because like I said, going through it, sitting on a tram, going through it, you almost like fall off the side of the tram.
Well, that's the whole point of it, is it's made to disorient you. I think they used to use them in like fun houses and stuff.
Yeah,
and
that would make sense.
It would just be like a short tunnel, but you'd walk through, and it makes you feel like you're falling, even though you're just walking straight.
Yeah. So he apparently as the actor had to take several takes to even walk part of the way through the tunnel that you see in the episode.
And what's funny is in the episode you can see they put tarps over the rails.
Yeah.
But it's not even like they put the tarps and like made them straight. It's just kind of like they were painting.
Yeah.
And just laid down a bunch of
so
tarps.
You didn't get paint on the rails.
On the rails, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's one thing I always think with these older episodes is when we're watching on DVD, we're seeing a clearer picture than you ever would have seen back then broadcast on older TVs. So I mean, we're seeing details that you may not have noticed, especially as a kid.
Well, and they probably didn't figure there'd be somebody 40 years later sitting and looking at it and watching, going, "Hey, wait a minute, those are tarps."
Yeah, those are tarps. Yeah,
and I've been there.
So just a little bit of trivia. There's actually tons of trivia for this, but I thought I'd leave it to that so we can focus more on our personal experience. So
and while Kevin has a personal connection to this show,
I
found out I do too.
Yes.
We were watching it, and there's a scene where they're loading up the nuke from whatever base they got it from, and they're putting it onto the back of a C-141 transport.
Yeah.
I was in the Air Force, and the base I was at was Norton Air Force Base, and we flew C-141s. We were also the 63rd, our wing, our squadron. Well, our squadron was 63rd Comm, but we were under the 63rd MAC, which is Military Airlift Command. And before they were the MAC, they were the 63rd MAW, Military Airlift Wing. And we were watching this 141 land in the episode, and right on the nose, it says 63rd MAW. I stopped. I go, did it say that?
Yeah, rewind.
Look back, and sure enough, so the wing that I was under, not at that time, because like I said, I was like 5.
Yeah.
But the wing that I was under was there. So they either filmed, that was either stock footage from Norton Air Force Base or just happened to be In fact, I'd have to look it up. I wonder if that was the Hanoi taxi.
Huh.
Because a little bit more into it. At the end of the Vietnam War, when they were bringing POWs home, they were brought to Norton, and the plane was called the Hanoi. They nicknamed it the Hanoi taxi. So I'm wondering if maybe that was stock
Possibly.
footage from that. I have to look that up.
They do use stock footage in the $6 Million Man quite a lot.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised. But that's really kind of neat, like a neat connection.
Yeah, so I was like,
and
hey.
I never would have noticed that. To me, it's just like, hey, look, there's an airplane.
I just happened to look, and I was like, because I was at first looking, I go, is that even Air Force? It says U.S. Air Force, okay. But it's not camouflage. I mean, because the ones that flew out of Norton were olive drab and gray. So, this one, it was interesting. It was just kind of neat to go, hey, I know them.
Yeah.
So there you go. My little happy part.
Okay. So I guess the main thing I want to talk about personally was just my being terrified as a kid, and which is, I think, probably your story too.
Yes.
So you want to go first? You want me to go first?
Oh, no, it's your birthday. You go right ahead.
So it's always hard for me to remember as a kid, like, did I see this the original time it aired, or did I see a repeat, or when I don't. As a kid, I didn't think about things as far as seasons and, it's airing for the first time. I just knew it's on TV and I liked it.
Well, and we've both seen so many things in repeats that, I can't remember what time it came on. I know when I was that age, I probably was going to bed at 8 or 9.
Yeah.
So I may not have been able
me too.
to even see it.
And it was, I looked it up. This aired both episodes aired in February of 1976. So
I was 4.
Yeah. And I was even younger. So my thought is that I saw a repeat of this.
You had to, because you had been like 2.
And that's just technical stuff. So whether or not, whenever I saw it, I was still a little kid, really young. And my cousin, who was quite a bit older than me, was babysitting me. I don't know or care what the reason was, but she was my babysitter, me and my little sister. And this episode was on, and we watched it. And of course, just like any good... Her name's Susie. Just like
Susie.
any great slightly older cousin that's going to babysit you, their main job is to make sure you don't die. And then job number 2 is to scare you almost to death. So we watched that and I was terrified. And the rest of the night, my only memory is her. If you've seen the episode, Andre the Giant wears these kind of white looking contact lens things over his eyes to make his eyes white. And so if you hold your eyelids up with your fingers and then
he's doing it now, it's kind of gross.
And look down, your eyes turn white. So my cousin Susie chased me around the house the rest of the night with her eyes like that. And actually she had brown kind of curly hair, which so does Sasquatch. Yeah. She doesn't look like Sasquatch. But her hair was, if she had like long blonde hair, it wouldn't have been as effective probably. But
and you being little, you're just terrified.
So that was
not
terrifying.
helping anything.
Another quick memory, and then we'll go to Jay's memory. It was, I had one of my best friends, probably my best friend as a little kid. His name was Ben. And my mom and his mom, I think, worked together. That's how we knew each other. But there's photos of us in a crib together. So we were friends from before we actually remember. And I still know him. But we both love the $6 Million Man. We were both terrified of this. And near my house when I was a kid, if you walk down the street, there was sort of this undeveloped area that actually had some oak trees. And out, you walk down into it, a couple 100 yards, and you felt like you're in the middle of nowhere. So we always walked down there. We went down with our dads once. And we were terrified of the $6 million, or not of Bigfoot. We're walking down there, and it kind of looks, to our little minds, it looks just like that. We're talking about it. Where every little noise is like, I bet that's the Bionic Bigfoot. So, I don't know how this happened, but our dads walked ahead of us or something, or maybe they stayed behind, and they basically scared us
just
and
let you go and scared you,
and roar or something like that. And I was down there. I ran all the way home without stopping. And obviously they weren't real Bigfoots, but I didn't wait for my friend Ben. I just kept running. So
you're on your own, Ben.
I'm the opposite of the $6 Million Man.
But you ran really fast, I'm sure.
Well, yeah. As a kid,
at that point, you probably ran really, really fast.
I probably ran about 60 miles per hour. But anyway, those are my 2 main memories. But it's been Bionic Bigfoot has been a force in my life ever since. He's still scary to me. Even when I watched it today, eating candy.
Yeah, eating bottle caps,
Sitting
on the couch.
Sitting on a couch in broad daylight, still kind of scary.
Yeah, when the first few scenes where you don't see him but you hear the snaps, you see just a little bit of fur. Yeah, it's even scary. Got that little. It's like almost a primordial response. I just kind of felt as like, ooh, wait a minute, I'm 40-something years old and I know that's Andre the Giant. Why am I afraid?
Yep.
Well, for me, I've always loved Bigfoot and aliens stuff, but I was terrified by them as a kid, and even getting books about them In Search Of was just the source of many nightmares.
Yep.
But they would show again the Patterson-Gimlin film, and if you don't know what that is, that's the disputed film of a Sasquatch walking across a riverbed.
Got to be the most famous Bigfoot film ever.
Totally most famous. And there have been people that come out and said, no, it's totally real. There have been people that come out and said, no, I did it. There's been like probably 100 people say, no, that was me in the suit.
Yeah.
So you don't know. And
the whole entire population of Southern California was in
all the
suit?
people that died.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They were all in the suit at the same time. So even that, though, would just scare me to death watching it.
Yeah.
And then, The Legend of Boggy Creek came out. I only recently saw that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that terrifying. It was good, but not terrifying. But even books, I didn't like books, picture books with them, with aliens, with anything. It would just scare me to death.
And yet you spend a lot of time with them, right?
But it was one of those weird things. And now it's kind of one of those facing your fears to kind of conquer your fears thing. And so I still love all that kind of stuff. Well, when I was little and being terrified of it, apparently one time, and this was my older brother and sister who, much like your older...
Yeah, it's their job.
Yes, it was their job to torment me. They claim it's because I was a brat. I claim it's because they're awful people. So apparently... I guess we had watched something about Bigfoot or some story came up and I was afraid and I didn't want to go to bed. And so I was pitching a fit. And so they put me in my room. Well, I think my brother must have gone outside, gone to my window and tapped on it. And I guess I must have been told if I came out, I was going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
So I spent the night, as long as I must have fallen asleep, in the hallway next to the living room, where I could hear them and I could see the light, but they didn't. And they, of course, knew I was there.
Yeah.
But then I didn't get in trouble, but I wasn't in my room where the Sasquatch was going to eat me. And then sometime, it was probably a couple years after that, it had to have been, it was probably after Star Wars came out. And Chewbacca didn't scare me. I love Chewbacca.
Yeah.
But I had a dream where I was sitting in our backyard and we had this redwood fence, about 6 foot high fence. And I'm sitting out there and all of a sudden I hear something walking through the leaves.
Yeah.
And all I can see is the top. And in my memory, it looks like the top of Chewbacca's head. But all I can see is that, and is walking across the fence line. And I'm just sitting there going, help, help, help. And I couldn't get anything out. And it was just terrifying. And I woke up probably, in a cold sweat.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Bigfoot.
Scary.
Really scary. Really, really, really scary when I was little.
I think part of it, we mentioned this while we were watching it just before recording this, is that as a kid, I mean, there were superheroes, there was G.I. Joe, all of that, the Star Wars. Well, this was before Star Wars, but
we had Super Friends.
Super Friends, yeah. But Steve Austin was he's like the man.
He never got beat.
Yeah, no one beats him. And then you see him fight Bigfoot in this, and he punches him as hard as he can.
Or Bigfoot grins.
And Bigfoot grins, and you're like, if he has no chance, then...
What chance do I have?
Yeah, what chance do I have? I mean, he can outrun him, outfight him, outlift him, and it made it even more scary than just a regular Bigfoot would be. Bionic Bigfoot's
Yeah, 100 times scarier.
100 times scarier than regular Bigfoot, which is already scary.
So. Now, we do have to address one thing.
Oh, yeah.
This will be our first and hopefully only argument on this podcast.
It won't be a mean argument, though. We just have our different opinions.
It depends on how far it goes.
I won't get mean.
I maintain that, okay, all the fact that this is a fictional show aside, that Steve Austin would not be able to lift things with his bionic arm.
Yeah.
Because whenever he tried to do it, sure, the forearm and the bicep could lift.
Yeah.
But what's it connected to? It's connected to bone, muscle, and tissue.
Regular human stuff.
So every time he tried to lift something up, it should rip out.
His arm should fall off.
His arm should fall off.
Like an action figure.
Yeah, like an action figure. When he runs, okay, I'm assuming that it goes all the way up to his hips.
Yeah.
But those bionics are attached to something. So when he runs or he jumps, shouldn't he, if he jumps like he does sometimes, shouldn't those legs just push straight up through his body?
The only thing I would say with the leg, I agree with the arm. I agree with the arm on a technical basis, but this is 70s television and sci-fi or fantasy. So,
but that's all beside the point.
I know, but I mean, really, you could pick apart anything if you want to get that. But with the legs, my only thing I would say would be, his legs could act as like shocks on a motorcycle, where, yeah, my arms are connected to handlebars on a motorcycle, but you go off a jump and you land from 20 feet up, my arms don't break because of the shocks.
Okay,
absorb
I'll give you that.
That one, but the arm, I agree.
But still, even if he jumped, he'd be jarring himself pretty doggone hard.
Yeah. So my whole, I mean, as a kid, I didn't really think about it, but my whole way to continue believing in Steve Austin's suspicion of disbelief is that while it's not expressly shown in, the beginning of the show, which is, by the way, the greatest beginning of any show ever.
It is really awesome.
The title credits, yeah. Is that they maybe reinforced his bones or something with some sort of metallic skeleton that can kind of connect and take the stress. But they don't show that.
When they're showing the body and they show where they connect, they don't show any reinforcements.
Yeah.
Because his spine should collapse every time he does that.
I agree. I agree that in the real world, that's what would happen. But this isn't the real world.
See, if they remade it today, they would probably address that. And
they would have
like,
to today.
We reinforced his spine.
Yeah.
Things like that. But and then I hadn't thought about it until watching it today. I told Kevin, if I take one contact out, and try and look, you get a massive migraine.
Yeah.
And so having this electronic eye that's able to see more than the other eye, he should have had the worst, most wicked headaches all the time. And apparently he didn't.
Yeah, maybe they should have done more. And like you said, if they were to redo it these days, they wouldn't be able to get away without addressing some of that. But I will say, and some of the original episodes, like the pilot movie and stuff, you will see things where he takes quite a while to figure out how to run because it's...
Yeah, I remember the pilot. Yeah. He's still kind of like wobbly.
Yeah, and there are parts, which I thought was kind of interesting. There are parts where he's running and he'll be sweating, but only like armpit sweat, but only on the side with an actual arm.
Huh,
so they thought about it a little bit, probably not enough, but they did think about it a little bit. And but I mean, I totally agree with you that, I mean, if this was in real life, they would have had to do something, or else every time he tries to roll over a car, the arm would start to do its thing, and then it would just rip out of the socket.
Go rip.
Yeah, the legs I give a little more leeway to because, if you think of them as like shocks, jumping up wouldn't be such a big problem. Jumping down, there'd be a shock to his spine and everything else. But if you think of it like motorcycle shocks on a motorcycle, then maybe it's a little bit believable.
Yeah, you just keep on saying that.
I know.
Just keep telling yourself that.
Yeah, I like it.
So tell us what you think, listener.
Yes.
We've been waiting to hear from people.
Yeah.
So weigh in on this.
And you're probably saying,
tell me how right I am.
But I'm watching a YouTube video. How can I tell you anything?
We have that covered.
We have that covered because you could, number one, you could comment on YouTube in the comment section.
Yeah. It's right
or
there.
If you'd like to say something longer or ask a question or something like that.
Or make a suggestion.
Then you could email us at valleylodgeproductions@gmail.com.
See, we told you we had it covered.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I know there's going to be 3 people listening to this. One will be me, one will be Jay, and then one will be me watching it while I check again to see if anyone's watched it.
I'm pretty sure most of the hits on ours have been me just checking to see if there are any hits on it lately.
Like, hey, there's 7 hits. Oh, but I was like 3 of those.
Yeah.
And Jay was probably the other 3 or 4. Jay was the other 3, and then the 4th one was someone accidentally clicking it.
Yeah, like, I want to see Bionic Bigfoot. Oh, this wasn't it.
This isn't it. This is some stupid podcast. But anyway, this is still fun to do. If the entire population of
all
San
100
Francisco,
of them?
Los Angeles, and
San Diego,
all 100 of them, we get 100 hits. That's great. Or if it's just 2 hits, that's great too, because this is fun.
Yeah, because that's all we're doing it for, really.
Yeah.
So there you go.
There you
Happy
go.
birthday, Kevin!
Yay!
Yay!